Secretary, what are you hearing from your fellow Texans about this situation, about this active shooter scenario that appears now to be over?
Well, just 3 weeks after what we saw in El Paso is tremendously heartbreaking for the entire nation, but also, of course, especially for those of us here in Texas and for the Panhandle where this happened. It's also a very, very powerful reminder that we need to take action to ensure that these types of incidents don't keep happening in our country. You know, just yesterday I visited the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, where 4 years ago a shooter went in there and he murdered 9 people. And how many of these incidents do we have to see before we understand that we have to take action? One of the most inspiring moments of the last few weeks happened in Ohio after the Dayton incident. As the governor there was speaking, giving remarks about what had happened, the crowd that was listening, people, I'm sure, of different backgrounds, different points of view, began to chant, "Do something, do something, do something." And that's the message that I think all of us should carry with us tonight, is that we all need to work to do something to strengthen our gun laws.
As you look at the potential progress then that may come from this very horrific incident yet again coming out of Texas, what would be your hope as you look at what can happen in Texas? We were just remarking that a headline from today from a local paper read 8 new Texas laws that loosen gun restrictions starting September 1st. You have a statement from Governor Greg Abbott, who is saying, "We will unite as Texans always do to respond to this tragedy," and that he did thank all, of course, the first responders along the way. Action. So what might that action be?
That action should be in the form of common sense gun safety legislation. Look, you know, we don't know all of the details about what happened today, and so, you know, we don't want to speculate on that. But we've seen enough incidences in this country, including what happened in Dayton and El Paso, and what may well have happened today as we find out more information, to know that we need to put in place universal background checks. We need a renewed assault weapons ban, because this AR-15 has been the weapon of choice time after time for these gunmen. We need to put a better system in place to ensure that anybody who gets their hands on a gun is not a danger to themselves or to somebody else. I support a 7-day waiting period. I also believe that we need to limit the capacity of magazines. And I believe that we need to increase the tax on ammunition and on guns, and use the revenue that we could garner, $600 to $700 million a year, to invest in community programs that are there to counteract gun violence, to prevent gun violence. On top of that, a number of these incidences, although again, we don't know if that's the case today or not, but a number of these incidences have been tied to extremism, specifically white supremacists. We need to give our FBI, our Department of Homeland Security, our Department of Justice, the tools that they need to root that out and to stop it before it turns into the kind of violence that we saw in Charleston or in El Paso. And we don't know what happened today. We hope that that's not the case today, although there is never any legitimate or acceptable reason for this kind of violence. But we do need to root out extremism wherever it's at.
Former HUD Secretary and presidential candidate Julian Castro, sir, thank you for calling in, and of course our best to your fellow Texans, as yet it is another bad weekend with bad people doing things, or one bad individual in this case doing things that certainly leaves a heavy heart there in your state. Thank you, sir, so much.